Well, I think the core competency is change. And what does it take to be in change as opposed to being changed? And, I think a lot of people think that people don't want to change. And we say it's not that people don't want to change, it's that people don't want to be changed. And that change is a door that has to be opened from the inside. But to be honest with you, we're not really prepared how to change. We're prepared how to, complete a task, attain a goal, but adapting to a change in context, adapting to a change in goal. These are things that I think we are underprepared for.
I think linguistically, the presupposition with the word changed is external. Somebody's going to come along and do something to you, whether you like it or not, and then you're going to achieve the company's objectives.
Yeah.
Control and the direction of that.
I mean, I guess it's kind of a paradigm. If we look at the history, well, let's play a little association game here. Thinking about things from an organizational point of view. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to say the word that follows. Human.
Slavery.
Yeah. For organizations, it's called resources, right? Human resource management, right? And so we are in what I think is the end of looking at human as resources. And so human resource management started in the 50s. Before that, humans were machines. During the Industrial Revolution, humans were a part of the machinery. Before that, they were tools and weapons. So we went from tools and weapons to machines to resources. And what's next? Because with AI, with work from home, with work from anywhere, I should say, with this shift from needing a degree to needing certificates to skills-based hiring, everything is changing. And so humans are no longer resources that we can say, oh, in my designed organization, there is this space here that's empty, so I need to fill that with a human resource. That's not going to work anymore. There's not a single, anyone in the podcast that thinks you're a resource that wants to be managed, raise your hand right now. Nobody in the world says, I am a resource, please manage me. So what's the future?
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you look at the future, if we say the future is, or one lens we can look at the future is, the future is this next wave of humans who are hitting the marketplace. What do they all share? They all went through COVID. They all grew up with a phone in their hand. They all do something totally different than what any manager went through when they were young. And so they are going to want a life that is different than, I am a resource, please manage me. I think they want to be, I am a human that is resourceful. And so how do we shift from the management side? How do we shift from managing human resources to unleashing resourceful humans, of which AI gets to help a lot? So that's what I see as the big trend. Content is cheap, knowledge is cheap, even competencies are cheap. What's skills, capabilities, and the drive to change and to change in a way that's beneficial to the organization and me is the new contract. It's not a one-way deal. It can't be a one-way deal because people just won't work.
So for people who have been resource managed and they're coming to the end of their tenures, then maybe for them this ignorance is just bliss. Good, the waves crashed over. I'm in the whitewater. I'm done. I'm cool. But these new people coming through, how do they prepare themselves? Because obviously the educational system is going to be based on what's happening in the present time, but they're not predicting what's going to be happening 3, 6, 9 months, maybe a year from now. How do they prepare?
Well, two thoughts come to me from that question. Number one is leadership teams. And in my consulting, I work a lot at the leadership team level. And I have never heard a leader say this, but I've heard leaders say everything but this, which is, I want these kids to suffer the way I did. They've got to prove their loyalty to the organization. They got to prove that they're tough. They got to prove themselves the way we did. And if they don't, then they're weak. They're in Taiwan we call them strawberries. They bruise easily, right? Yeah.
At least I know a little bit of Chinese chow mein.
Yeah, chow mein. There you go. And so from that leadership, and that's not just the 50 and 60-year-olds. People in their 40s still had to prove themselves, and there was this sense of, if you don't prove yourself, if you don't take one for the team, then you're not a team player. And these generations are going to say, no, you don't treat me like that. I don't want to give up my life for livelihood. And so if you think about it, before COVID, especially, in a lot of my programs, when I'm dealing with leadership teams, there is this whole conversation around work-life balance. And the solution to work-life balance was give them more money, give them time off. So it was a money-time relationship. Now nobody's talking about work-life balance. They're talking about mental health, mental wellness. Mental health and wellness is not a transactional thing. You can't just say, oh, take 3 days off and you'll be mentally healthy. It's systemic.
Be positive in your thinking, hey?
Yeah. And so it's systemic. And when the systemic is flawed, and when the system's flawed, and yet the people who are managing the system think that flaw is necessary, like hazing. Hazing used to be a part of college.
What's hazing?
Hazing, like if you wanted to join a fraternity, or if you want to join a football team, then you had to be there was this initiation. Okay. Some kind of physical, emotional initiation that you had to pass to prove that you could join this fraternity, that prove that you could join this team or whatever. And so this kind of rite of passage where you're going to be physically, emotionally punished to prove that you have the right to be a part of this group. That was a part of joining the military, doing a lot of things, being in a sales team. You got to take all those cold calls. There's just certain things you had to do. People now are saying, nah.
Fascinating.
Right? Why am I going to do that?
I remember when I was in real estate, I had to be a sales assistant. That was the first thing. And I drove around in this van. The air conditioning was bad. It's 40 degrees on a summer's day. There's a cassette player in there, no CD player. And I drove around that. Okay, I tolerated it. I then had to put signs up. And I remember going out and driving these 4-foot timber stakes into the ground. And I'd have a sledgehammer and I'd have a pile driver. Bang, bang, bang. And I remember one day I slammed it down and the pole driver shot back up and hit me in the head. And it half knocked me out. I fell on my ass and I laid there on the grass thinking to myself, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And now I meet other real estate agents 20 years down the track and they're saying that's not what we signed up for, but they're trying to make us do it. And there's some smart operators who say, we will do that stuff so you don't have to. You come in and do what you really want to do, which is to learn to prospect, to sell, and to close. And we'll take that away from you. And it's interesting. One customer the other day sent me a screenshot and he said, look, we are the top agent in the area. And I said, who's the second top agent? And it was my other customer. And those two people are taking that pain away and they're not saying, prove yourself.
Right.
They're saying, show us what you're made of, but you don't have to prove it to us. No tattoos, no alpha, omega.
Yeah. And where this is showing up in the States in particular is the distrust of going to university, the unwillingness to invest the time and the money that it takes to go to university. And the shift that I was just at a conference in Seattle called Learnapalooza. What a great name. And in Learnapalooza, I had the chance to meet an old friend of mine who's Brandon Carlson, who's now the head of L&D for all of Starbucks, global L&D for Starbucks. And what he was saying is that, you know, as fewer and fewer people go to university and we have fewer and fewer college graduates, then on the demand side, we have to shift what we say we need. And so before we'd say, well, the only way you can get this job is to have a 4-year degree. Well, guess what? You can no longer say that because people are saying, no, I don't want to play that game. So then it went to certificates and people would get certificates. And now it's going from certificates. People say, I don't want to get a certificate. I want to prove my skills. And so what I heard there is everything skills-based, skills-based, skills-based. Everything is about providing skills, the necessary skills for you to do what you're doing now and to gain the skills that you need for what's coming. Because let's think about this just for a second. If you get a 4-year degree, what are you proving to your employee, your potential employee? I've got a 4-year degree. What does that prove to an employee?
They can show up for college. They can start, maintain, and finish.
Yeah, compliance and a willingness to achieve an arbitrary goal. I'm a good boy. I'm in the box. I'll do what you say. I'll follow the rules. You know, you tell me I got to do this, I'll do this. I'll at least get C's.
And I won't
You know, yeah, no, I won't question you. And now people, not only are people not finishing university, which was the big problem before COVID, was people would start and now not finish. Now people are just saying, no, I can make friends outside of university. I can create I have a network that is greater than the university's network. Why do I want to go into debt? Why do I want to spend these years doing this when I can start building the skills? I can start building the experience. And organizations, at least the ones in America, they're at the forefront of this, are saying, we need to be ready to welcome and train and help these people prepare for whatever future they're able to get. And so that's why when you said, what's the core competency? To me, it's change. It's my ability to continue to lean into the future I want rather than being satisfied with the past I got and make the changes necessary to get there and to get there in a way where I'm healthy and I'm whole and I'm living a life that, of joy and bliss. And, what I find more and more is people want it all. They don't want, like, I'll never forget, I was working with a leadership team and we're talking about change. And one of the guys says, I want to watch my child grow up, not grow longer. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, every day when I leave, my child's in his crib. And every day when I come home, my child's in his crib. And so I'm watching my child grow longer, but I'm not watching him grow up. And I think that was, especially in Asia, I think that was a part of the social contract that we had with organizations. That I am going to do whatever it takes to get the numbers, to get things done. And I'm willing to sacrifice health. I'm willing to sacrifice family. I'm willing. And now, why would we do that? Why would we do that? There's no compelling argument. And so at the tip of the iceberg, it's why there's so many restaurants in America that say, sorry, we can't open on Sunday because we can't get staff. Why do I want to work on a Sunday night? So this, how as a leader, as an organization, as a trainer, as a consultant, to me, how do we create a change mindset, a mindset that eats change for breakfast and is willing and able to swim through life as opposed to sit on the beach.
I met a gentleman from Malaysia and I asked him, I said, what did you learn after 30 years in corporate? He said, well, I didn't learn about myself and all I got was bad health.
Yeah.
And he left after 30 years and he didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
He said, Daniel, I've been told when I'm allowed to start, when I'm allowed to finish, when I can go for the bathroom, when I can have time off. And he said, when my children were born, I wasn't there. When they graduated, I wasn't there. I don't know myself. I don't know my family. And as soon as he left, within the first 6 months, all he wanted to do was to run back. He said,
Yeah.
Daniel, all I want to do is go back because that was the comfort zone. I know nothing outside of that. And talking about mental health and emotional health, he was a confused person.
Yeah.
He only knew being a salaryman.
Yeah.
I saw that in him. Met another guy in Taipei. He worked for a company who makes batteries, electrical goods, and cameras. We won't mention their name. And he was working 18-hour days. And I said, what can you do in 18 hours? He said, well, I got to get to work before the boss to show him I'm a good employee. And he said, I'm not allowed to go home until he does because I got to show him I'm a good employee. And so he would start 6 o'clock in the morning, not going home to midnight.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. There was no other purpose. Another event, I remember living in Dubai, and me and some friends were working with Emirates Airline. We all learned the skill of flexibility, to be able to change, to adapt, to adjust, to respond. And that was required living in the Middle East because you had to give up everything that you knew, go to a new place, a new religion, a new culture, and you had to adapt. And then after they left, they went back to Australia. And they said, well, what did you learn? They said, well, we flew around the world at 40,000 feet on $500 million aircraft, and we took care of 400 people. And they said, so basically you just served chicken and beef. They went, no. We work with 130 nationalities. We got customers from 130 nationalities. We have flexibility. Now in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, they couldn't even find work in Australia having that soft skill. No. But all of a sudden, 2020 come around, what do they want? Flexible people. Adapt, adjust, and respond. And it's interesting from what I've been through and what my colleagues went through, just how valuable that skill is needed. If those companies would have had that soft skill to adapt, adjust, and respond, they would have survived and thrived. But they didn't have it.
Here's a great story. One of my facilitators lives in Italy, and during COVID, he had two favorite restaurants. His house was in the middle of these two favorite restaurants, and during the lockdowns, restaurants were able to do takeaway, just like maybe they were in other countries. And one guy said, "No, pizza, you can't take away pizza because it's not fresh and it's not good." The other guy says, "Yeah, you can't take away pizza. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my kitchen into a prep kitchen, and I'm going to sell people prepared meals for them to cook at home. So all the ingredients, everything all set up. And so they would come by, they would get like 3 days worth of meals that they would still have to cook, but all the restaurant ingredients, restaurant grade level. Well, guess what? That guy now has a multi-million-dollar business that still's going after COVID's over, because people thought he sold on subscription. So every week they're getting their packages, and people didn't cancel when it was over because they thought this is great. Instead of going out, we can go in. And the other one had to close his restaurant. And so, this closed mindset of pizza needs to be eaten fresh. And I'll wait until we can open. Or, hey, wow, how can we build community? How can we build a new business model that's never been done in Italy before? And, this is kind of like the crux of what I'm talking about, which is, in general, schools teach you linear thinking of this is the syllabus. It's a puzzle. These are the pieces of the puzzle. These are the deadlines. You've got to comply to all of this. And if you do everything that I've told you to do in this syllabus at the beginning, you're going to get a good grade. And then humans come into the workplace thinking that life is like that. And human interrelationships with people thinking that life is like this. And guess what? It's not. So one of our core phrases is everything's a prototype, including me. Everything is cyclical. Everything is, we're all building the airplane while we're flying it. And thinking that you've got to have the perfect airplane and everything has to be checked before you take off is great if you're in the airline business. But as a human being, sometimes it has to be ready, fire, aim. And let's learn from how we do it. And so we work a lot with our clients on how do you mitigate risk as you iterate. And everyone, to use a baseball metaphor, everyone's going for a home run. Everyone's trying to hit a home run on every project because that's what we did in school. You had to get an A. And so then we go into the business world and we think every project's got to be a winner. And if it's not a winner, what do? We shut the fuck up and don't say a damn word. And if we do something well, what do? We tell everybody, But what should we be doing? If it's not working, we should be talking about it and learning from it. And this goes against, this is when people say think out of the box. People think it means, we need to have a lot of Post-it notes on the wall. No. Think out of the box means go out of that comfort zone, go out of the way you've been trained to think, and think in a way that's going to get you what you desire in life, as opposed to what you think you can get, or you think you deserve, which is even worse.
I like how you described the school system being linear in the model. There's the jigsaw, here are the pieces, you put them in together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I went to school, they diagnosed me with linear sequential learning disability, which means this person can't learn in a linear model. So what do we do with him? We send him to therapy. So I go to therapy for 5 years. That'll fix him. That'll make him think in a linear fashion. Yeah. And I went to the physical therapist, I went to the emotional therapist, the psychologist, the child psychologist, and I went to all the additional classes to get fixed.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand lateral thinking. And I could get the answer. I just didn't have to go from A to B to C to D. I could just go from A to D and give you exactly what you want. And they asked me, well, how'd you come up with it? Doesn't matter how I got there.
Yeah.
I just got there. And so I couldn't play the game. So you get the punishment.
Yeah.
You didn't get an A, you got a B, a C, a D. Now we're going to have to call your parents and we're going to scare you into linear thinking. And then I got into high school and they'd call my mother, Mrs. Tolson, do you know your son has been using coloured pencils in the classroom? And she said, of course, I bought them for him. Well, this is a grammar school. We don't encourage that. She said, well, he can do what he likes.
Yeah.
And I remember going through that, and they really wanted to school me. But when I got older, I realised for me that was my superpower. All of a sudden, I found something called hypnosis. I found NLP. I found timeline therapy. I found emotional intelligence. All the things that don't make sense, all of a sudden started to resonate with me. And I could hypnotise people. I could use NLP. I could take people on a past life journey out into the future. And all of a sudden, I have value. And I'm a lateral thinker. And I got rewarded for it outside of school. But when I went back to university for the first time at 24, they said, Mr. Tolson, it's semester 1, you better go back to year 10. I said, fuck you and your essays.
Yeah.
I'm not going to write them. And so I went and did something else. But nobody could guide me through that. Nobody.
No. And a couple thoughts that come from that. It's a beautiful story. And I'm so thankful that you were able, well, A, to get some diagnosis, because a lot of people don't even get that. And so at least that gave you and your parents a framework to think through if you chose to. I just got, at the age of 59, I just got diagnosed with ADHD. And it's like I spent 2 weeks just, the penny just consistently dropped. Oh my God, that's why that. Oh my God, that's why that. Oh my God, that's why that. It's like I've been beating myself up because all I have is my superpower, which works for me, and everything else doesn't. And so, there's now the good news is people are getting diagnosed and people are getting tools, and there's a concept, at least it's big in America, neural diversity, and that neural diversity is a spectrum, and it's not like a light switch. Either you are or you aren't. And this is a big conversation that was going on at the conferences I was at in America, which is, how do we unleash the superpowers of these people rather than trying to funnel them through a university and make them suffer through 4 years to prove that they can do something that they're not going to do in the work world because they're not willing to suffer at that same level. But you know what drug right now is they don't have enough of in America that they're running out of is Adderall. And Adderall is the drug that they diagnose for people with ADHD and some learning disabilities. Provides, with a dose of focus, a dose of normality, and they can't make enough of it. They can't stock enough of this drug because there's a huge population to survive in this linear world and in this high pressure world, in this high performance world. And the high performance could even be performing on my Instagram or on my TikTok. I mean, so how kids look at performance is different, but there's still a lot of pressure on it. And they're turning to drugs, and it's they can't get enough of it because it helps. But is that the long-term solution? It's
Well, the word
it's
is thrive, but it's not thrive.
yeah, yeah. And so I think this, again, getting back to humans as resources, or humans are resourceful beings. And I honestly hope and pray and I believe that the world is moving towards a space where, young Daniel, who has your superpowers, who has this ability, would be able to find an employer that says, "Oh my God, this is great. This guy's awesome. Let's get him doing this right away." And that's where this kind of shift from degrees and certifications, because a certification is still just a proof that you are willing to follow instructions. And when we start moving to more skills based, and we can say, okay, well, you're really great at this stuff. Let's develop this at this pace, and let's use this to get you into this and this. Then I think that there's a chance for humans to live a more humane life, and for organizations to be more humane, and that's going to give them dividends. But it all goes back to, in my opinion, am I ready to say that life for you does not need to be what life for me was? Am I willing to say, like right now, I've got an 18-year-old daughter. We homeschooled our kids the whole way. So I got a 22-year-old son who's playing professional baseball here, who went through the Taiwan baseball system. I've got an 18-year-old daughter who mostly did art and stuff. Got accepted at #1, art university in Taiwan, and said, "Nah, I'm gonna take a gap year. I'm gonna see what life is about." I think this is the future, that people are going to be in control of how they approach their future. You think about, in a place like China, mainland China, where you got like less than 1% being able to get into college, and the other 99% just have no future. That's unsustainable. That's totally unsustainable, right? So we've got to change the way we treat humans.
The Bible has 10 commandments, and when I became a practitioner of NLP, we had 14 convenient beliefs. And one of the convenient beliefs was everybody has all the resources that they need to succeed and achieve.
Yeah.
And I believe we all have those resources in us. And I believe the school system that I was in really wanted me to succeed, but they just couldn't fit me in the box.
Yeah.
I was out of the box and they wanted me to go in. They weren't out to get me. They just didn't know what to do with me. But along the way, I was fortunate enough to meet people who knew what emotional intelligence was.
Mm.
They said emotional intelligence and having these skill sets are very important. And you've just got to find a new sandpit to play in. And I ended up joining a couple of departments in Emirates Airline. The first one was critical incident stress management. And so you needed people who were emotionally wired. So if there was going to be an aircraft disaster, you didn't need a logical person. You needed emotional people to help people get through this moment in their life, a traumatic experience. And I went and joined that and I thrived. And then I went and joined peer support. And all of a sudden, everybody in peer support's not logical. They're not lineal. They're all lateral thinkers and emotionally wired, going, we can have a human connection here. And when there was a death on the aircraft, when there was an accident and the peer support team was called in to check on people and to have a conversation, we had a 99.99% return to work ratio.
Yeah.
Meaning that everybody, after having a conversation with a human, felt better about their situation. And they said, you know what? I feel cared for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go back to work tomorrow. There was only one person in my career who said, Daniel, can I get a day off? And he said, it's not that I don't want to go to work. He said, I was doing CPR for 6 hours on somebody. And he said, I've been awake for 36 hours and I'm exhausted and I don't want to endanger my team.
Yeah.
And Emirates Airline endorsed that.
Yeah.
They endorsed it. And for people like myself, we could find a place to belong.
Yeah.
And have a significant contribution without a university degree, without a formal psychology certification.
Yeah.
Or a value. And that was exciting.
Yeah.
And if more companies can do things like that internally, I think it's wonderful.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to. You are going to run out of people who are willing to play the current game. And so if you want to have humans, which maybe there are ways not to, but if you want to have humans, you're going to have to find ways of attracting and developing and unleashing exactly what you're saying, that human resourcefulness. And I'm a big believer that AI is going to create opportunities for a more humane workplace. And that it will help us balance out some of these things. So if I'm not a linear thinker, guess what? I've got an AI who helps me think linearly. And so AI can help me create my schedule. AI can be that personal assistant for me that takes that load. If I'm not a lateral thinker, well, guess what AI is fantastic at? AI is amazing at lateral thinking. If you give the right prompt to AI and say, give me 17, novel uses for a banana peel, they won't say, to trip somebody up. Lateral thinking, AI scores off the charts in terms of creativity. So if you're a structured thinker and you need help on the creativity, well, guess what? You've got that help. And so I think there's if we go back, tools and weapons, parts of a cog in the machine, a human resource to be managed, and a resourcefulness to untap. And I love what you said about NLP, that we talk about the inner genius, and the idea is if you found if you're Aladdin and you find Aladdin's lamp, the genie can't answer the wish from inside the lamp. You got to let it out. And it's the same thing for, I think, people say think out of the box. Your inner genius can't answer the question from inside your box. And so you got to let your inner genius out. And the way you do that is by having a better wish. You got to have the goal for the future that's greater than your current thinking. And so when we get people to do, planning, and you think about it in organizations, it's time for annual planning. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, what's the minimum that I can add that I don't think my manager is going to push back on? So if I think I can get away with a 3% growth, and I'm not going to get pushback and say, no, you got to make it 5%. So I'm going to make my next year's targets the minimum I can so I have the highest likelihood of achieving it. Because I don't want to fail. And what is that doing to us? It's putting not just our thinking in the box, it's putting our dreams into the box. And the opposite is, I think the opposite's even more true, which is, wow, if you really think about what's important to you, if you want to have time with your family and make money and exercise and if you want it all, guess what? You have the inner resources to achieve all of that. But you got to ask for it. And we're not taught to ask for more. We're taught to comply.